Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something. What if everything you've been searching for, peace, purpose, fulfillment, could be found in one unshakable truth? What if the divine, infinite creator of the universe distilled all his guidance into a single, simple law? Stay with me, because by the end of this message, you'll not only know this law, but understand why it's the key to unlocking the life you've always dreamed of. We live in a world overwhelmed by rules, doctrines, and expectations, but the truth is, God doesn't complicate things. His law is pure, straightforward, and powerful. And the moment you grasp it, it will change everything. You'll walk differently. You'll think differently. You'll be different. So don't move an inch, because this is the conversation that will ignite your spirit. In a world that often feels overwhelmingly complex, there's something profoundly refreshing about the simplicity of God's design. People search endlessly for meaning, turning to philosophies, doctrines, and practices that promise enlightenment. Yet at the core of all creation lies a single truth. God's ultimate law is simple, universal, and timeless. This simplicity doesn't mean it's shallow or lacking depth. It's the kind of simplicity that reveals profound wisdom, cutting through confusion and giving clarity to our existence. God does not complicate his expectations of us. While human institutions may layer rules upon rules, creating hierarchies and divisions, God's law is pure and accessible to all. You don't need an advanced degree or special knowledge to understand it. It's not reserved for the elite, the wealthy, or the learned. It's for everyone. The shepherd in the field, the child on the playground, and the elder reflecting on a lifetime of memories all have the same access to this truth. That's the beauty of divine simplicity. It's inclusive, not exclusive. This law is universal because it transcends boundaries. It's not limited by geography, culture, or era. It was as relevant to ancient civilizations as it is to our modern, fast-paced lives. It's a constant, an unchanging foundation in a world where so much shifts and evolves. While societies rise and fall, while technologies revolutionize the way we live, this law remains steady, anchoring us to something greater than ourselves. God's simplicity stands in stark contrast to human nature. We tend to overcomplicate, to dissect, and to add layers that obscure what was originally clear. Look at how we handle relationships, responsibilities, and even spirituality. We complicate matters with assumptions, doubts, and fears. Yet God's law reminds us that we don't have to live that way. There's a better path, one marked by clarity and focus. At its heart, God's law reflects his very nature. God is not a God of confusion or chaos. His law mirrors his character, simple, loving, and purposeful. It invites us into alignment with him, stripping away the noise of the world and the clutter of our minds. When we tune into this divine simplicity, we experience a profound sense of peace. That's because we're no longer wrestling with questions like, what does God want from me, or how do I please him? Instead, we realize that living in alignment with his law is not about striving, it's about being. It's about embracing the truth that has always been written on our hearts. One of the most powerful aspects of God's simplicity is its ability to unify. Think about it. How often do people argue, divide, or separate themselves based on interpretations of right and wrong? God's law cuts through all of that. It's a reminder that beneath our differences, be they cultural, religious, or personal, we're all held to the same standard. We're all called to live according to the same principle. This unity is not about conformity, it's about harmony. It's about recognizing that we're all connected, all part of the same divine creation, and all subject to the same loving law. This simplicity is also liberating. When we embrace the idea that God's law is straightforward, we're freed from the burden of constantly questioning and second-guessing. We don't have to exhaust ourselves trying to decipher complicated doctrines or live in fear of missing some hidden requirement. Instead, we can focus on living with intention and authenticity, knowing that we're walking in alignment with God's will. This freedom brings joy, a lightness to our steps, and a renewed sense of purpose. God's law is simple, but that doesn't mean it's easy. Simplicity often requires courage because it forces us to let go of distractions and face the truth head on. It challenges us to strip away the layers we built to protect ourselves, layers of pride, fear, and doubt, and live authentically. It calls us to focus, to stop complicating what God has made clear, and to trust in his design. Simplicity in divinity is not about reducing God to something small or manageable. On the contrary, it's about recognizing the profound wisdom in his design. It's about seeing how the creator of the universe could take something so vast and distill it into a principle that every human being can understand and apply. This is the beauty of divine simplicity. It's not about less, it's about more. More clarity, more connection, more understanding of who God is and who we are meant to be. It's an invitation to step into the fullness of life, guided by a law that's as clear as it is transformative. In a world that seems to change by the minute, where trends come and go and ideologies shift like the wind, there is something profoundly reassuring about the steadfastness of God's law. It is an unwavering truth, unshaken by time, culture, or circumstance. This truth is not subject to reinterpretation, nor does it bend to accommodate the preferences of the moment. It stands as a beacon, guiding humanity through the chaos of life with clarity and purpose. The nature of God's law reflects His eternal character. Unlike the rules and systems crafted by human hands, which are often flawed and inconsistent, God's law is perfect in its consistency. It does not falter under pressure or change with societal whims. This constancy provides a firm foundation on which to build our lives, a grounding that we so desperately need in times of uncertainty. When the storms of life threaten to overwhelm us, it is this unwavering truth that anchors us, reminding us of what is real and enduring. God's law is not just unwavering, it is universal. It applies to every individual, regardless of their background, status, or beliefs. This universality ensures that no one is left out or overlooked. It is not reserved for the privileged or the powerful, but is accessible to all who seek it. This inclusivity demonstrates the impartiality of God's justice and the boundless reach of His love. Whether you are standing on the highest mountain or walking through the darkest valley, God's law is there, offering the same guidance and assurance. What makes this truth so powerful is that it is not dependent on human understanding or agreement. It simply is. Whether we recognize it or not, whether we accept it or reject it, God's law remains. This is a humbling realization, reminding us that there are realities greater than ourselves, truths that exist beyond our limited perspectives. It challenges the pride of humanity, the belief that we can redefine what is right and wrong, and calls us to submit to a higher authority. Living in alignment with this unwavering truth is not always easy. The world often presents alternative paths, ones that seem more convenient or appealing in the short term. Yet these paths ultimately lead to confusion and dissatisfaction because they lack the grounding that God's law provides. Choosing to follow God's truth requires courage and commitment, but it also brings profound rewards. It is in this alignment that we find true peace, not the fleeting kind that the world offers, but a deep and abiding peace that comes from knowing we are walking in step with the Creator's design. This unwavering truth is not just a set of rules or principles, it is deeply personal. It is a reflection of God's heart, His desires for humanity, and His vision for how we are to live in relationship with Him and one another. When we embrace this truth, we are not just adhering to a code of conduct, we are stepping into a divine partnership. We are acknowledging God's wisdom and sovereignty, trusting that His way is not only right, but also best for us. The unchanging nature of God's law also serves as a standard against which we can measure our lives. It calls us to accountability, reminding us that our choices have consequences and that there is a higher purpose to which we are called. This standard is not meant to condemn, but to guide, to help us course correct when we stray, and to encourage us to strive for greater alignment with God's will. It is a gift, not a burden, offering clarity in a world that often feels overwhelming and disorienting. God's unwavering truth is a source of hope, especially in moments of despair. When everything around us feels unstable, when we are faced with loss, failure, or uncertainty, it is comforting to know that there is something we can always rely on. God's law is a reminder that no matter how much the world changes, some things remain the same. His love, His justice, and His plans for us are unchanging. This truth provides a sense of security, a reassurance that we are not adrift but held firmly in His hands. The unwavering nature of God's law points us back to His character. It reveals a God who is faithful, dependable, and constant. In a world where so much is temporary and unreliable, this constancy is a treasure. It invites us to trust Him fully, to lean on His understanding rather than our own, and to find rest in the certainty of His promises. By aligning ourselves with this unchanging truth, we not only honor God, but also position ourselves to live lives of purpose, peace, and fulfillment. Life is a journey filled with twists, turns, and crossroads. At times, it feels like we're wandering through a maze, unsure of which direction to take or whether the paths we've chosen will lead us to fulfillment. In this uncertainty, the greatest gift we can receive is guidance, a light to illuminate our way. God's law serves as that light, a constant and reliable guide that offers clarity in moments of doubt and wisdom when we need it most. God's guidance is not like the fleeting advice we often receive from the world. It is not rooted in trends, personal opinions, or cultural norms. Instead, it is timeless, rooted in His eternal nature. It does not shift or evolve based on circumstances, but remains steady and unchanging. This constancy makes it a dependable source of direction. In a world where so much is unpredictable, God's guidance offers a sense of stability, reassuring us that we are never truly lost. One of the most profound aspects of God's guidance is its accessibility. It is not reserved for the privileged or the elite, nor does it require us to decipher hidden messages or complicated teachings. God's law is clear and direct, available to anyone willing to seek it. Whether we are standing on the mountaintop of success or navigating the valleys of hardship, God's guidance is always within reach. This accessibility reflects His love and desire for relationship with us. He does not leave us to figure out life on our own, but walks alongside us, offering direction every step of the way. God's law is also comprehensive, covering every area of our lives. It is not limited to spiritual matters, but extends to our relationships, decisions, and even the way we view ourselves and the world around us. There is no aspect of life too small or insignificant for God's concern. His guidance helps us navigate the complexities of life with wisdom and grace, ensuring that we are aligned with His purposes in everything we do. This holistic approach to guidance reminds us that God is intimately involved in every detail of our lives, caring deeply about our well-being and success. Living by God's law does not mean that life will be free of challenges. On the contrary, following His guidance often requires us to take the road less traveled, to make choices that may not align with popular opinion or personal convenience. Yet these challenges are not without purpose. They refine us, strengthen our character, and draw us closer to God. When we trust His guidance, even in the face of difficulty, we find that His way leads to peace and fulfillment that the world cannot offer. God's guidance is not just about showing us where to go, it is also about shaping who we are. His law calls us to live with integrity, compassion, humility, reflecting His character in all that we do. As we align ourselves with His principles, we become more than followers, we become representatives of His love and light in the world. This transformation is one of the greatest testimonies to the power of His guidance. It not only changes our lives, but also impacts those around us, creating a ripple effect of goodness and grace. In moments of uncertainty, when the path ahead is unclear, it can be tempting to rely on our own understanding or seek guidance from sources that promise quick answers, but these shortcuts often lead to confusion and regret. God's guidance, on the other hand, invites us to trust in His wisdom and timing. It requires patience and faith, but it also offers the assurance that He sees the bigger picture and knows what is best for us. By following His law, we are not just choosing a path, we are choosing a relationship with the one who knows us better than we know ourselves. God's guidance is also a source of comfort. In the midst of life's uncertainties, it reminds us that we are not alone. He is with us, guiding our steps and lighting our way. This awareness brings a sense of peace, even in the midst of chaos. It allows us to move forward with confidence, knowing that we are not navigating life blindly, but are being led by the Creator of the universe. His presence reassures us that no matter where we are on our journey, we are never beyond His reach. God's guidance is an expression of His love. It is not about control or restriction, but about freedom and purpose. His law is designed to lead us into a life that is abundant and meaningful, one that reflects His glory and fulfills our deepest longings. By following His guidance, we are not just choosing a better path, we are choosing the best path, the one that He has prepared for us since the beginning of time. It is a path that leads to joy, peace, and the fulfillment of His promises, ensuring that every step we take is one of purpose and direction. At the core of God's law lies a profound and unchanging truth. It is not merely a set of rules or principles, but a reflection of His boundless love for humanity. Every commandment, every piece of guidance, and every moral standard originates from His desire for our well-being and flourishing. God's law is not an imposition, it is an invitation, an expression of His care, designed to protect, nurture, and guide us toward a life of meaning and fulfillment. To understand this, we must first recognize the essence of God's nature. He is love, not in a fleeting, conditional sense, but as an eternal, steadfast reality. This love is not passive or indifferent, it is active and intentional. It is the kind of love that reaches into the brokenness of the world and offers healing, that steps into our confusion and offers clarity. God's law emerges from this love, providing us with a framework to navigate life in a way that honors Him, respects others, and nurtures our own souls. God's law is a safeguard protecting us from the harm we might unknowingly invite into our lives. It is not a barrier to our freedom, but a boundary that ensures our safety and flourishing. Like a loving parent who sets rules to protect their child, God's guidance stems from His intimate knowledge of our nature and needs. He knows what will lead to our peace and joy and what will lead to destruction and despair. His law is His way of steering us toward what is good, shielding us from paths that may seem appealing in the moment, but ultimately lead to pain. Far from being restrictive, God's law is liberating. It frees us from the chaos of moral ambiguity and provides a clear direction in a world often clouded by conflicting ideologies. It gives us the confidence to make decisions rooted in truth rather than uncertainty, to act with integrity even when it is difficult. This freedom is a gift of love, allowing us to live authentically and without fear, knowing that we are walking in alignment with a divine plan that seeks our highest good. God's love, as reflected in His law, is also deeply relational. His commands are not impersonal decrees handed down from a distant authority, but an invitation into a closer relationship with Him. Through His law, He reveals His character, His justice, mercy, patience, and faithfulness. Each principle is a glimpse into His heart, an opportunity to know Him more deeply. By following His law, we draw closer to Him, not out of obligation, but out of a desire to align ourselves with His goodness and love. This relational aspect extends to our interactions with others. God's law is not just about our relationship with Him, but also about how we treat those around us. It calls us to love our neighbors as ourselves, to act with compassion, humility, and kindness. These principles are not arbitrary, they are a reflection of God's love flowing through us. When we live in accordance with His law, we become vessels of His love, bringing light into the lives of those we encounter. This is both a privilege and a responsibility, a way of participating in His redemptive work in the world. God's law also reflects His patience and grace. He understands our weaknesses and failures, knowing that we will not always get it right. Yet His love remains constant, calling us back to Him when we stray. His law is not a measure of condemnation, but a guide to restoration. It points us to His mercy, reminding us that no matter how far we wander, His love is always ready to welcome us home. This unchanging love is the foundation of His law, a reassurance that we are never beyond His reach. The beauty of God's law lies in its simplicity and depth. It is not about legalism or perfectionism, but about relationship and trust. It invites us to surrender our ways to His, to trust that His plans are higher and His wisdom greater. In doing so, we find peace, not because life becomes free of challenges, but because we are anchored in the certainty of His love. This love transforms the way we see ourselves, others, and the world, giving us a perspective that is rooted in hope and redemption. God's law is an expression of His desire for us to live abundantly. He does not give us rules to burden us, but to bless us, to lead us into a life that reflects His glory and fulfills our deepest longings. It is an act of love that seeks our joy and peace, our growth and flourishing. By living in accordance with His law, we are not only honoring Him, but also stepping into the fullness of life that He intends for us. His love, as revealed through His law, is a gift, a constant reminder that we are cherished, guided, and held by the One who created us. Every person, without exception, is born with a purpose. It is woven into the fabric of our existence, a unique calling that resonates with the deepest parts of our being. Yet, discovering and fulfilling this purpose can often feel elusive. In a world full of distractions, competing voices, and shifting priorities, how do we align ourselves with the divine purpose for which we were created? The answer lies in God's law, a timeless guide that not only reveals His will for humanity, but also helps us walk confidently in the path He has set for us. God's law serves as a compass, pointing us toward the destiny He has designed for our lives. It is not a random set of rules or a list of restrictions, but a roadmap to becoming the person He created us to be. When we live in alignment with His principles, we begin to understand that His law is not separate from our purpose, it is integral to it. His commands are tailored to nurture our potential, challenge us to grow, and lead us to the fulfillment of the unique mission He has given us. One of the most profound aspects of aligning with divine purpose is the clarity that comes with it. When we step into the flow of God's law, the noise of the world begins to fade. The confusion about what to pursue, who to become, or how to navigate life's complexities dissipates. God's law simplifies our decisions by rooting them in eternal truth rather than fleeting trends. It allows us to focus on what truly matters, to prioritize values that endure, and to make choices that align with His greater plan. This clarity is not just liberating, it is empowering, giving us the confidence to move forward even in the face of uncertainty. Alignment with God's law also brings harmony to our lives. Many of the struggles we face, internal conflict, broken relationships, and unfulfilled desires stem from being out of sync with God's design. His law acts as a realignment tool, helping us correct our course and restore balance. It calls us to live with integrity, treating others with kindness, humility, and respect. This alignment creates a ripple effect, improving our relationships, strengthening our character, and fostering an inner peace that cannot be shaken. When we live in harmony with God's law, we reflect His love and grace, becoming instruments of His purpose in the world. Living in alignment with divine purpose requires more than obedience, it requires trust. God's law often challenges us to step outside our comfort zones, to take actions that may not make sense from a worldly perspective. It calls us to forgive when we want to hold on to grudges, to give when we feel like we have nothing left, and to stand firm in truth even when it is unpopular. These moments of obedience are not tests of our strength, but invitations to trust in God's wisdom and faithfulness. When we choose to follow His law, we are declaring our belief that His plans for us are good, even when we cannot see the full picture. One of the most beautiful outcomes of aligning with divine purpose is the sense of fulfillment it brings. Many people spend their lives chasing success, recognition, or material wealth only to find that these pursuits leave them empty. God's law redirects our focus, reminding us that true fulfillment comes not from what we achieve, but from who we become in Him. It shifts our priorities from self-centered goals to God-centered living, where every action, decision, and relationship is infused with meaning. This fulfillment is not fleeting, it is enduring, grounded in the knowledge that we are walking in step with the Creator of the universe. Aligning with divine purpose also positions us to make a lasting impact. God's law equips us to live beyond ourselves, to contribute to His kingdom in ways that transcend our individual lives. Whether through acts of service, words of encouragement, or the quiet faithfulness of our daily actions, living in alignment with God's principles allows us to leave a legacy of love and faith. Our lives become a testimony to His goodness, a reflection of His light in a world that desperately needs it. This impact is not measured in accolades or achievements, but in the lives we touch and the difference we make. There is a sense of peace that comes from knowing we are living out God's purpose. This peace is not the absence of challenges, but the presence of assurance that no matter what we face, we are exactly where we are meant to be. God's law gives us this assurance, reminding us that every step we take in obedience to Him is a step closer to the life He has planned for us. It frees us from the pressure to strive or compare, allowing us to rest in the knowledge that we are fully known, deeply loved, and uniquely called. Aligning with divine purpose is about relationship. God's law is not a checklist to complete or a standard to achieve. It is an invitation to walk closely with Him. As we follow His guidance, we come to know Him more deeply, to trust Him more fully, and to love Him more completely. This relationship transforms us, shaping our desires, refining our character, and empowering us to live lives that glorify Him. It is in this alignment, this intimate connection with the Creator, that we find the true essence of our purpose of life, lived not for ourselves, but for His glory and the good of others. At first glance, the concepts of law and freedom might appear to stand in opposition. Law is often seen as a boundary, a set of limitations that dictate what can and cannot be done, while freedom is viewed as the ability to act without restraint. Yet, in God's divine design, law and freedom are not adversaries but partners. They are intricately connected, working together to guide us toward a life that is not only free in the truest sense, but also deeply fulfilling and aligned with His purpose. God's law at its core is not about restriction, but about protection. Like the walls of a fortress, His commands safeguard us from harm and provide a secure space in which we can thrive. This protection is not meant to stifle our freedom, but to preserve it. Without boundaries, freedom can quickly descend into chaos, and choices made without guidance often lead to unintended consequences. God's law ensures that our freedom is not reckless but purposeful, enabling us to make choices that lead to life, joy, and peace. True freedom is not the absence of rules, but the presence of wisdom. It is the ability to make decisions that reflect not only our desires, but also our understanding of what is good, right, and beneficial. God's law provides us wisdom, offering a framework for living that transcends the shifting morals of society. It teaches us to value what is eternal over what is temporary, to prioritize character over convenience, and to seek the good of others as much as our own. By aligning ourselves with His law, we gain the clarity and discernment needed to exercise our freedom in ways that honor Him and bless those around us. The relationship between law and freedom is most evident in the way God's principles liberate us from the burdens of sin and confusion. When we live outside of His law, we are often enslaved by the consequences of our actions, guilt, regret, and broken relationships. Sin promises freedom but delivers bondage, enticing us with the illusion of independence while chaining us to patterns of harm and destruction. God's law, on the other hand, sets us free. It leads us away from the snares of sin and toward a life of integrity, peace, and purpose. In this way, His law is not a limitation, but a pathway to true liberation. Freedom, as God defines it, is not simply the ability to do whatever we want. It is the power to become who we are meant to be. His law shapes our character, refining us into individuals who reflect His image. It teaches us self-control, humility, and love qualities that enable us to live not just for ourselves, but for others. This transformation is the essence of true freedom, a life unencumbered by selfishness, fear, or pride, and instead marked by joy, generosity, and a deep sense of purpose. God's law also liberates us from the need to strive for approval or validation. In a world that often measures worth by achievements, appearances, or possessions, His principles remind us that our value comes from Him alone. We are not defined by what we do or what others think of us, but by His love and grace. This truth frees us from the pressure to conform or compete, allowing us to live authentically and confidently in the knowledge that we are fully known and deeply loved by our Creator. The freedom found in God's law extends to our relationships as well. His commands call us to forgive, to love our neighbors, and to seek reconciliation. These actions, though challenging, free us from the bitterness and resentment that can imprison our hearts. They open the door to healing and restoration, enabling us to experience the joy of healthy, life-giving connections with others. In this way, God's law not only guides our individual lives, but also fosters a sense of community and unity among His people. Living in alignment with God's law also frees us from the fear of the unknown. When we trust in His wisdom and follow His guidance, we can move forward with confidence, even when the path ahead is unclear. His principles provide a steady foundation in a world that is often unpredictable and uncertain. They remind us that we are never alone, that His plans for us are good, and that He is always in control. This assurance gives us the courage to embrace the freedom to dream, to take risks, and to pursue the purpose He has placed in our hearts. Perhaps the most profound aspect of the connection between law and freedom is the way God's law leads us to Him. His commands are not merely about right and wrong, they are about relationship. They draw us closer to Him, teaching us to trust His goodness and rely on His grace. In following His law, we experience a freedom that goes beyond circumstances, a freedom that comes from knowing we are loved, guided, and held by the one who created us. This relationship is the ultimate expression of freedom, a life lived not in fear or striving, but in the peace and joy of His presence. God's law does not confine us, it empowers us. It does not bind us, it releases us into the fullness of life that He desires for us. By embracing His principles, we discover that true freedom is not found in doing whatever we please, but in aligning our lives with His will. It is the freedom to live with purpose, to love without fear, and to walk confidently in the knowledge that we are His. This freedom is a gift, a reflection of his boundless love, and an invitation to step into the life he has prepared for us.